Hello and welcome to another episode of Escaping Samsara podcast. I'm Nathan Thompson and I'm joined again by Ellen Johannesen. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, Nathan.
Ellen has been on the podcast before talking about her journey, and what we're going to do is sort of collaborate on a discussion about the four turnings. Sorry, the four thoughts that turn the
Hmm.
mind, which is a sort of key philosophical doctrinal concept in I suppose definitely in Tibetan Buddhism, in Mahayana as well, or is it mostly Tibetan?
Yeah, no, well, actually, these are called the common or the shared preliminaries. So these are the outer preliminaries. So any Buddhist school will practice these four thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma. So we distinguish between the common and the uncommon. So the uncommon are related to Vajrayana. So there you get the Vajrasattva practice, Guru Yoga, uh, um, uh, Kyabdra Semkye, Refuge and Bodhicitta, sorry. There you get other preliminaries in addition to these, but everyone has to consider these these thoughts or these contemplations, I would say, thoroughly before
Mm,
they, you know how Buddhism is not like so much of a belief. It's belief. You have to you spend a lot of time on what we call ascertaining the view. You have to kind of convince yourself logically, emotionally, in accordance with your experience and logic that yeah, this is worth following. So that's what these four thoughts are for.
right. So we're going to do one episode on each, and I'm not sure exactly when I will post this one in relationship to the other three. Although in terms of linear time, this is the first one I've recorded. But maybe Ellen, you could just maybe give us a quick overview of all four, and then we're going to focus on
Okay.
karma. Yeah.
Okay, so we have four of them. We have the first one is considering it's called the precious human life. So you are considering all the advantages and freedoms and the great opportunity that you have here and now in this birth as a human being. So you go through systematically all your assets, we can say, all your freedoms. You're free from certain unfree situations like being enslaved or being born into a realm where you cannot, in a situation or a realm where you cannot practice the Dharma, where you don't have any free will or free options, we could say. And you have the advantages of being born in a civilized country, having access to the Dharma, having access to teachers, and so on. So this is really the first contemplation, that you realize what you have and what a great opportunity you have. Then, of course, comes the next, which is impermanence. That these advantages you have, they could be lost at any moment. Your life could be over, or your situation could change radically, as we have seen in the recent years. Uh, so this is the second contemplation. So these contemplations are all like hard. They are something we like to be distracted from, but that we need to consider when we're taking up the Dharma. And then you have what we will discuss today: karma, cause and effect, karma and retribution. What are the we can say the laws, or how does karma work? How does our actions affect a future outcome? How do we do wholesome actions and avoid negative actions? What to adopt, what to avoid, and so forth. And then there's the shortcomings of samsara. What is the problems with being in this conditioned existence that we're in? And it's also added the advantages of liberation. So you go through all these contemplations. And in a context of a ngondro, preliminary practices, you do them for quite some time. So it's not like something you do in an hour or a day, but it's something you repeatedly bring to mind. And as a practitioner, we have liturgies where you go through all this contemplation every day, actually. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And in Theravada Buddhism, which I mostly is my background, there's, and this is in the Pali Canon, there's the
Mm-hmm.
five remembrances, which are sort of, there's a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And the five remembrances are, like this body will die, this body will get sick, this body will
Mm-hmm.
age, everything that I hold dear will one day be parted from me, and
Yeah.
my actions will lead to consequences, and this is my
Mm-hmm.
karma, and this is the only thing. And I think that's what you're speaking to, where it's across all different schools of Buddhism, right from the earliest
Yeah.
texts that we
Yeah. Yeah.
have. And what I really like about these contemplations is they are the antithesis of like modern new age feel good yoga. Like I think I did this once in a class. I don't teach very much. I'm not much of a teacher, but occasionally I've taught a class. And one time I just decided to go into a fairly new agey situation and just like bang, these are the five remembrances, just to kind
Yeah.
of, because this is what they're for. They're to like wake people up. This isn't about
Yeah.
like, you know, getting a big endorphin rush and then like feeling a little bit less stressed, right? This is actually about waking up and actually facing the reality of our
Mm.
situation, which is sickness, old age, death, karma. These are real things, and the
Yeah. Yeah.
more you contemplate them,
Yeah.
and this is the other interesting thing I find doing these contemplations, and like death meditation in Theravada is part of this, where it sounds morbid and depressing to think about this stuff, but actually the effect on the mind is the exact opposite. My
Mm-hmm.
mind gets happy. Like on my last retreat, I spent a decent amount of time just meditating on myself as a corpse, just imagining just me,
Mm-hmm.
dead corpse, and
Mm-hmm.
like my mind was so peaceful. I don't even understand it, but it just basically just starts to cut away at the root of suffering, which is clinging to this impermanent body, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. And, it's to get away from also materialism and what we are usually occupied with, and to realize how distracted we are from the essence of life. So yeah, it's right what you're saying. So when you confront the fact that you are gonna die, you are here now, it also gives an appreciation for life, and urges you to practice. So that's what it's meant to be, because we are we are so prone to procrastinations. Even if you read the Buddhist texts from the big masters, who were fantastic practitioners, of course, they still have these words to themselves, where they constantly confess, "Oh, I'm such a bad practitioner. I waste so much time. I do this and this when I should be practicing the Dharma." So they acknowledged this problem we have, this kind of craving for distractions, and an inability to just assess the facts of life.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so, if we were to sort of focus on karma, which is the theme of this episode, I mean, it's such a big subject, but I think given the fact that the Escaping Samsara audience, covers yoga and Buddhism, I wonder, and you yourself practice both, yeah.
Mhm.
So I just wonder, maybe we could just have a little think about the differences between karma and rebirth in Buddhism versus yoga. So, like I know in yoga it's like a soul. Actually the biggest difference that I've come across recently is the idea of like a vidya, ignorance, the thing that essentially separates us from non-duality and makes us kind of suffer. Yeah, this main ignorance, this veil. I find in the Hindu texts it's like there's a purpose behind it. Like a vidya's there for a purpose. It's to teach you
Mhm.
stuff, right? But in Buddhism, that's not the case. In Buddhism, it's just like a sort of weird kink, if you like, a little kind of trick of the mind that's a bad habit, and you just need to release that, and you will then you'll be in the non-dual state. But it's not like there's a purpose for it, you know. I don't know. That's just something that springs to mind. But maybe you've
Yeah.
got a different idea or something else to talk about.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a purpose for avidya. It's a habit that we carry with us from the beginning of the beginning of time. Except there's probably no beginning of time, but yeah, it's rendered in a different way. And there's also a big difference between yoga and Buddhism, and people are not always so clear about it, because from the outside it might look very similar. You're striving for liberation, aren't you? And you're adopting certain ways of behavior. You're following certain rules, but the reason for you doing so can be very different. So and you know the common way to distinguish between Buddhism and yoga is in the view of the self, the Anatman doctrine in Buddhism, that you have no substantial self, whereas in all the Hindu, or we should say Brahmanical schools, if we're talking long way back in history, they have this idea of the self, of the residing self. And when in relation to karma, this, as you see in the Bhagavad Gita, as you see in the Yoga Sutras, this self, this inner self, is really an inactive self, doesn't do anything, and is not actually affected by karma. It just wanders through a certain amount of lives. So there are, of course, different understandings of this self. But in Buddhism, we don't believe in this kind of essences. Everything is fluent. You are a collection of processes that continue, so that everything you do affects the outcome of what will happen in the future. So it's and we can say that why is this? It's because everything is interconnected. So we cannot understand Buddhism without understanding interconnectivity, that even we as selves are interconnected. It's more a question of a we than of an I. So you only exist in relation to something else. And this is what we come to realize, at least in the well, from it's actually it's their interconnectivity is there right from the beginning. It just gives just has a different it gives rise to different practices within the Mahayana.
I mean, what about then the tantric schools? I mean, because they seem a little bit closer, like Hindu Tantra, Buddhist Tantra, because, I'm not by any means an expert on any of this, but from what I understand, you've got Shiva Shakti, right? And
Mhm.
then in the Buddhist Tantra, you have Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri. They seem like fairly analogous ideas. I mean, would you say, is there any difference? Would you say like Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra are closer, or do they still have the same kind of core difference?
I haven't really studied the Hindu Tantra, but we can need to start a little bit from the beginning here with interconnect and karma. So, of course, in Buddhism, we don't. There is self, and there is essences. That objects and phenomena, they don't have any essence. So perceive in the world.
Yeah, Ellen, sorry. I'm gonna have to stop you there because oh dear, oh no. Hindu, tan, Hindu Tantra
Okay.
and Buddhist Tantra, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not so familiar with Hindu Tantra, but I think to understand the view of Tantrism, we have to go a bit back again to interconnectivity. So it's not just that we as human beings are interconnected, that we are relational, we exist by merit of relation to others. But also, actually, every phenomena in the universe, from the perspective of what we perceive, and this is something we have to keep in mind when we talk about these things, that we born in the West, we have a pretty materialistic perception of reality, that reality is something out there that we take in through the senses. In Buddhism, this is from the beginning refuted. It's actually the same in yoga. There you have everything we perceive is like the play of the gunas. It's connected with the Samkhya philosophy. In Buddhism, it's what we perceive is just we can say, according to our karma and our habits. The external world is just a reflection of our mind. And when you go through the Buddhist schools, we can say from the early schools, they had a different view of emptiness. When you go to the higher schools like the Mahayana, and in the end the Vajrayana, this view of emptiness is explained in more and more subtle and more refined ways. For instance, in the Mahayana, you have the Madhyamika school and you have the Yogacara school. So there, you only have emptiness. You have an endless like potential for phenomena to appear. And phenomena appear to us according to our, we could say, karmic makeup. But we can't really find any essence in the external world itself. But we know that it appears to us, and it can only appear to us because it has no essence. So that you see a thing differently from me. And we all have different perceptions. We can say according to our mind, we all inhabit different worlds. Except we share some karma, so we have some similar perceptions of things. We are not that different, but we have different karma from a dog, for instance, or some other, or a god, or a preta, or some other
Yeah.
being.
Just
So,
on that, like in this text that I'm studying, it's called "The Foolish Dharma of an Idiot Clothed in Mud and Feathers"
oh,
by Jun.
fantastic
You
title.
know, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Jun. I'm not going to say it right, but it's Junjun Lingpa is the author.
yeah,
And anyway, he has this cool story, I guess. It's a simile. Yeah. So it's like basically it's like he's saying like you take a glass of you take a fluid, right?
yeah.
And to
Glass of water, yeah,
a glass of water, right? If so
yeah,
to a hell being, it will appear as lava. To a
yeah,
ghost, it will appear as pus and blood. To a human, it will appear as water, and to a deva, it will appear as ambrosia. So
yeah.
but the idea is that like it's not, but the point he's making is like not that there is fluid that exists out there. It's like
Mm,
it all exists in terms of the perceptions of the different beings based on their
exactly.
different karma, which is what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I had written down exactly the same example actually.
Really? Oh,
Because
what
yeah,
what
yeah,
I wonder who came up with it first then. If it
yeah, I
was
don't know.
Junjun Linka.
It's
Yeah.
no, it's a common example. So
Okay.
that's the Vajrayana view, where they are more concerned with appearances, and the practice is about purifying our appearances. But in order to do that, you have to understand emptiness first. Otherwise, you can go crazy, because you realize that, since this is the way that things are, they appear to us, and they have no existence in themselves as such, but they appear to us. This is the view you have to understand first, and then you can start to purify your appearances. So that's very much the practice you do in the Vajrayana. You purify your appearances, you habituate yourself to perceive the world differently and to perceive yourself differently. But you have to understand on what base you can do that. Otherwise, you can go you can go crazy.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
So,
okay, so if we were to like make it a little bit more concrete for people,
mhm.
I mean, the classic question is then, okay, so if in Buddhism everything's interconnected and there's no self, then what is reincarnated? And it's a good question. And we went through this with Michael Owens on a different episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's worth looking that up because he's very good on this, and I've completely forgotten what he said about it. But it's just this idea of because you hear it all the time, right? If you're
Mm,
around any kind of Buddhist school, it's all like, oh well, if you do X, Y, Z, then you will be reborn as an animal. Then you will be
mm,
reborn in a Brahma realm. They just say this language, right? And it's all like,
mm.
okay, but there is no you. So what's getting reborn here? Where's
Yeah.
this karma getting accumulated?
Yeah, that was a problem. That posed a problem for Buddhism, and the Buddha was also he was asked about and it was one of the things that he did not want to answer. What happens after death to an arhat? Uh, in uh, uh,
So an
in
arhat is a fully enlightened disciple of
well,
the
not
Buddha.
not
Okay,
according to
okay, that's an
Mahayana.
argument, not
Yeah,
according to you
not
guys. No.
according to Mahayana or Vajrayana.
But
Um,
close enough anyway.
yeah, yeah, but when you come to Yogacara, they have a more kind of refined description of psychology as I see it. So they say, well, there is they call it alaya vijnana. It can be translated as storehouse consciousness. So there is a kind of uh, a consciousness, a basic consciousness that contains all the karmic seeds, and that projects into a new womb when you are reborn. So they are carried over from one
That
life.
sounds a lot like the
Mm.
individual Purusha, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's not. But
But it seems so. It's the same idea, isn't it?
well, but it's not it's not the soul, but it's kind of potentials that has to be experienced. But I think more important than that is that one doesn't, whatever you do within the Mahayana, whatever whoever gets to suffer, someone has to suffer, and we all suffer together. We're all in this together. So whatever we do, our reason to do positive actions and avoid negative actions is for the welfare of all. It's not just for me to have, not to have experienced suffering in the future lives, but it's for everyone not to experience suffering in the future lives, because yeah, you that is the aim, to free everyone from suffering, so we get away from this idea of a separate self. But yeah, it has been it has been problematic, and we have this, you're familiar with the 12 links of dependent origination. It's
Yeah.
interpreted that way, that you have you have ignorance, and you have karmic seeds, and that causes consciousness. So then when they talk about the third link, that is consciousness, that's the storehouse consciousness, the
Uh,
basic consciousness to be born. So that's the
uh,
causality. Because there is karma, because there is ignorance, someone has to be born. And then when you're born, you develop the senses. When you have developed the senses, there is contact with external objects. When there's contact with this external object, there is sensation. When there is sensation, there is clinging. When there's clinging, there's craving. When there's craving, you increase the samskaras, you strengthen them, and then that causes you to be born again. And then you
mm,
experience suffering and death. So it's
mm.
there, really. It's there from the beginning, but of course the explanations, as Buddhism develops, they become refined.
Yeah, so basically, it sounds like, it's one of the key differences here is that with Buddhism, it's all about a process,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about the fact, and this is the key concept of emptiness, because things are empty because they're in process. It doesn't mean that nothing exists.
No,
It
no. Mm-hmm.
exists, a process exists, but if you, like any process, like a waterfall or a rainbow, you can't just point to the thing that is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's just a process, isn't it? And this is
Right.
something that can
Yeah.
be experienced in meditation
Mm-hmm.
as well. And this is where it sort of becomes apparent to yourself on a more experiential level that this is the case. Is
Yeah.
that fair,
Yeah,
do you think?
that's what we have meditation for. We have to contemplate the view first, right? And then we have to experience it directly in meditation. Mm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, like, what if we make it like more practical? Because if you read some of the texts and the books, they get like quite specific with it, don't they? So they say like, okay, so if you kill, let's say you're a cat and you kill a large number of birds and lizards and whatever, then like even if you get reborn as a human in your next life, then you'll have a short life as a human because you've
Yeah,
killed so many other beings, right?
yeah.
So they make it very specific like that. Now,
Mm.
yeah, like as a sort of modern person, it's hard to. I'm not saying I wouldn't say I take that purely poetically because I've been a Buddhist for long enough now and considered these views that I actually kind of believe that's true, and I'm not entirely sure exactly on what basis I believe that to be true. It seems just likely now,
Mm.
but it does also seem quite poetic, doesn't it? Like, where do you stand on the more practical? like if you lie, then you're going to get a lot of sickness in your next life, for example, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I find this is they are very interesting and worth reading actually. And before this meeting, I was just reading again from the words of my perfect teacher, which I think is the really go-to book if you want to study these specific.
Oh, who's it by?
This is by Patrul Rinpoche.
Okay, is that a modern yogi or?
I think 18th, 19th century.
Okay.
But it's studied frequently in the monasteries, and we studied it at Rangjung Yeshe. It's an important book. Uh, and there you get, and I remember studying this, like all the hell realms in detail, and what were the courses for ending up there. Uh, but but apart from that, I think there is some interesting kind of psychological um, uh, some kind of psychological dimensions there. Like you have, like from killing, you have a fully ripened effect, and it's what is defined as an action. It has to be deliberately, and you have to know that you're doing it. You have to kind of seek out who you're gonna do it to, and you're gonna kind of rejoice afterwards and think, ah, that was good. Then you get the full effect. So it's not killing someone by accident, doesn't qualify. So yeah, that you will be reborn in from killing, and there are there are things that are worse than others, like killing your father, mother, or an arhat is worse. That brings you right uh, to the hell realm. But then you have also for all the negative deeds you can do, you have four kind of results, and I can read them to you. So you have the fully ripened, which is that it can bring you to the hell realm. But then you have or I guess other realms for other actions. Then you have the effect similar to the course. So if you kill in this life, you are likely to kill also in next life. You kind of repeat that action. That's from one side. And the other side of is that from doing that action yourself, you're likely to experience that being done to you. You kind of attract that kind of energy. Then it's the conditioning effect, which I find most interesting, is that you'll be born, or you will find yourself in an environment that is similar to the action, like yeah, if you're killing, you will find yourself in a very hostile, scary environment, lots of unrest, wars, and things like that. And then the proliferating effect is that you just stay in samsara, you just repeat this again and again and again. So yeah, these are the ways it is written in a very like concrete way. But it's also possible, I think, to think about it in a different way, in a more like psychological way, that it's a kind of energy, it's a kind of action that you create in your mind stream, and that attracts certain things, that kind of attracts certain actions. I mean, for sure, you're more prone to repeat a similar action again and again, and you might attract, people and circumstances that are also in the same way. So yeah, I think they are worth. They are definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I think the sort of like shadow side of that springs to
Mm.
mind is it's sort of victim blaming in a way, you know? Like if people are born in wars, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, well,
but
that was your fault.
yeah, and this I have on my list also, because this is what I call the karma trap. Is to understand karma as a kind of punishment, because and that's easy to do, and I think I sometimes see that done in other non-Buddhist cultures. I don't definitely don't see it in Buddhism, because we all have a mixed bag of karma that you and me, we are lucky in this life. It's just because now at the moment we're living out our good karma, but nobody knows what happens, in the next life. We can come into a completely different situation. So, seeing someone else's suffering is not like a haha, they deserve it. It's like we're all in this together. It might be me the next time. Now this courses and circumstances are playing out in a very negative way, and that should evoke our compassion, and also make us, try to make us avoid to increase that kind of negative energy, to do something. Is not
Yeah, yeah.
is not to sit back and think that aha, they deserve it. We've all been there. We've all done it. We all, if we believe in that we are born again and again, that we're going through these experiences again and again, we've all had those, and we will have them in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's the other thing that sort of springs to mind is that this has sort of been I sort of the reason why. I mean, one argument for why karma and sort of multiple lives, um, in favor of it is the fact that like most of the mystical traditions in all of humanity have sort of ended up with a similar type belief, like,
Mm.
I mean, if you look at like early Christianity before it was like suppressed by the church, there was a guy called, I'm not going to say his name right. Hang on, I looked it up actually. Where is it? His name is like Oregon. Or, yeah. So for example, right, Plato believed in, multiple lives. And then
Mhm.
there were the Christian Platonists who like basically had the idea that like, well, the whole point of life is to become like Jesus. And it's going to take more than one lifetime to do that. So
Right. Yeah.
that was their philosophy.
It's a kind of
Um,
bodhisattva, a kind of
exactly.
bodhisattva
Yeah.
view. It takes
Yeah.
millions of
For
lifetimes
Yeah, exactly. And
doing good
then
actions.
in Sufism, it's not universally agreed upon, but there's plenty of Sufis who do believe in that kind of thing.
Mm.
And it's also when you were describing it, it reminded me of I think it's Swedenborg who had the
Hmm.
idea of like basically your soul is in his system is developed throughout your human life and colored by your decisions, right? So you're constantly growing this sort of thing based on your decisions, your perceptions, your energy in this life. And then when you die, the consequences of that will just manifest. So it's sort of quite a similar idea, especially in the more sort of Vajrayana thing where it's like you're coloring your viewpoint, and then if you're going to color your viewpoint with like a load of bad stuff, and you're just going to end up with bad results. That's kind of
Mm.
obvious. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So I think
Yeah.
this kind of thinking, this kind of contemplating is really the point of this discussion and the point of these four thoughts. It's this is something to think about and to contemplate and to meditate on and maybe research and have a chat about. That's the whole point of this, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, uh, another modern take on it that I like very much is what Robert Thurman calls this. He calls karma evolutionary actions.
Okay.
And I think it's also, we can see it in that way, that it's something to make us aware that we are part of our evolution. We are steering it all the time through our actions of body, speech, and mind. And we're all in it together. We are also experiencing what we are experiencing due to what happened in the past. This is meditation I often do with my students to make them aware how we are connected to the past. We're not limited by this skin of our body. We carry with us genealogy but also beliefs and values from the past. So unless anybody had, you know, developed these thoughts, we wouldn't have them. Like we have also many positive values that people didn't have 1,000 years ago. Then you could enslave people, you can own people, you can kill them for entertainment. There are lots of stuff that we should be grateful for people in the past, that they have given them to us, and we're part of they are part of us now. And we also carry this evolution forth, through our actions. And according to Buddhism, you are by no means powerless to affect your evolution, especially in Vajrayana. You take on this other embodiment to be like a million times stronger than you are in your current form, because that's also a concept. That's a limitation we have put upon ourselves, what we're actually able to do. So that's the
Yeah.
point of this, like, taking on a very strong, forceful deity persona. I shouldn't call it persona, but taking on a deity, taking on that to be much more effective in affecting the world. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the other sort of like key thing about karma and in sort of perhaps looking to reduce and eventually eliminate all suffering, which is the whole point of Buddhism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's so you have, your five precepts, the ethical trainings, but also the 10 paramis, right? The 10 perfections, which is sometimes
Mm-hmm.
called virtues. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know that that's very big, especially in Mahayana, but it's in across all the Buddhist schools. So, yeah, like how do you see these concepts of like paramis, because I know they're very important in Mahayana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they are, maybe we should say what
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they
Well, I know they're
are.
a bit different in Theravada, so why don't
Yeah,
you go
I
first? I'll
mean,
do the
we
Theravada.
have generally the six perfections, which are generosity and morality, uh, diligence, one with three, diligence, uh, no, I should say patience, meditation, and wisdom.
Okay, cool. I'll do my turn,
Yeah.
right? So it's um I've forgotten even the first one. I know this. I chant this. So it's
Okay.
like generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, like effort, patience,
Mm,
truthfulness, determination, kindness, and equanimity.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, got there in the end.
Yeah.
So, these perfections in Buddhism are things that can be trained for countless lifetimes. I mean, the Buddha is supposed to have trained these perfections for several incalculable eons, which is like
Yeah.
several Big Bang to Big Crash to Big Bang to Big
Hmm.
Crash universes,
Hmm.
which is an intimidating thought. I'm be honest. How do you see this training across lifetimes?
Well, paramitas means they are transcendent trainings. So we have to start somewhere. So we have to start with generosity, for example, is a way of overcoming your ego grasping, because you realize that by giving, by being generous, there's really no difference between your joy, your pleasure, and what you give to another. You also feel really, it also makes you feel good to give something to someone else rather than keeping it for yourself. So it kind of joy increases by being generous, and there's several ways to be generous. You can give someone protection, you can show them the way when they're lost. You can give material things, or you can give them a dharma teaching, not necessarily in the Buddhist sense, but put someone who is making a bad decision, put them in the right way. That's a kind of generosity. So as we start, they are, of course, just practices that we choose to do. We're not generous just when we feel like it. It's kind of an attitude that we carry until it becomes second nature. And we also, the point is that we learn something from it. You know, we learn that we receive by giving. There's no difference between you and me, by self and others. So that's what you try to overcome. Then you're transcendent when you've overcome that division, self and other. And with discipline, it's also maybe take some effort in the beginning. They also talk about that. First is like a suit of armor. You use the discipline to protect yourself, and then it also becomes more like second nature. You realize maybe life is easier if I abstain from this and that. And patience, not to get angry. That's the hardest thing. Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
incredibly
so the
hard.
Buddhas in Buddhism, they say, I think the Buddha said this himself, that there is no austerity like patience, not getting angry when your buttons are pushed. That's the greatest austerity. And there's no downfall like getting angry, like losing control of your mind. That's the biggest downfall. It's like a wildfire. So it's an
Yes, absolutely.
interesting coining on tapas, austerity. It's not about torturing the body, but it's about it's about being patient, not justify your anger like we do all the time. And
Yeah,
but it also teaches you something, it teaches you really that, if I don't get angry, there's a reason why we get angry. It has to do with us, what buttons are triggered. Um, and if you read like are you reading The Way of the Bodhisattva's Life, Bodhisattvacharya Avatara? It's all about these paramitas, and very interesting chapter on the patience
is that
and
Shanti Deva?
Shantideva, yeah, on what you learn
Yeah,
from.
I read a bit of it a few years ago. I haven't studied it though.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you need to, there's a kind of text that you need to study with the teacher and with the commentary, because it's a poetic text. Um, so the point is that you learn, they are the key to transcendent knowledge, when you realize that okay, there is no actually evil person there. It's just my habits, my habitual tendency that clashes with someone else's habitual tendency. And then you try to see beyond that, and see the other person's Buddha nature, their enlightened nature. And
Yeah, I think
that I forgot to mention with with uh what when we talk about what we are in the early Buddhism, the Buddha is silent with regards to what happens to an arhat after death. What does enlightenment entail? Or and whereas in the Mahayana and in the Vajrayana, we talk about that there's a nature of mind, there's a foundational nature of mind that is
it is
that
not the
pervades
Purusha.
it's not the no, but the Purusha is singular, the Purusha, and they talk about it
Okay.
in the Upanishads. I read today that it's a little being that sits in your heart,
But
and
isn't that kind of the personal Purusha and then there's the big Purusha? I thought there was two
mm,
types.
uh, well, Purusha in Patanjali's sense and in the Samkhya sense, as far as I know, is a personal Purusha, and it's the inactive Purusha.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
whereas
I didn't know that.
Tathagata Garbha, or your Buddha nature, is cognizant and luminous. So it's
Got
not
it. Yeah.
doing anything, but it has like all the potential.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it pervades everything. Everyone has it.
I mean,
All
let's
beings.
if we were to if we wanted to sort of start to wrap this up, I'm thinking interested in like a personal story, right? Where basically it's like if I think about like my relationship with these concepts, especially karma, right? Like when I first came to Buddhism, luckily I came via the Goenka door, which is a beautiful
Uh,
door, and I'm very grateful for it because he makes it super ecumenical and you don't have to believe all this stuff. Because if I
mhm.
was told I had to believe that, then it wouldn't have worked. I had to, but when I did that course, the first ever course, I did experience myself as impermanent. So instantly, it's all like, there's your teaching right there. So that was the sort of foundation. But if look at the eightfold path, right view, karma is part of right view. It's like if you're gonna practice mindfulness, right, which is the eighth part of the eightfold path, or any kind of meditation, and you're not practicing with right view, then you're not doing Buddhist meditation in that sort of
Yeah.
sense. So I think that would have also thrown me when I first started because I liked Buddhism, I like the Buddha, I want to do Buddhist meditation, but I don't want to have to believe in karma, right? So I'm
Hmm.
talking about this to sort of demonstrate that, like now, I pretty much 100% believe it. So, and if I think about it, there was never really a kind of moment where I went from not believing it to believing it. It just sort of happened, it just grew along with the practice,
Hmm.
and then the more you read and the you study, it just sort of becomes more and more obvious. I'm just interested, like, what was your journey with it?
Well, my journey was actually that I went to India in 97 and I studied Yoga Sutras. And it really just resonated with me. So at that time, I was a dancer, and I got home and I made I made a performance about karma that was called Pain and Again. And I thought it struck me that it was so ridiculous, the thought that, we have kind of invented natural law, of cause and effect. But it doesn't apply to the human mind. And I found that kind of absurd. How is it that we have stated all these laws for the physical universe, and why shouldn't they apply to the human mind? Why shouldn't that also be subject to cause and effect? Of course, if you do something negative, it has a negative result. You don't get more happy, down the line. So it became quite obvious to me, and I wanted to. It inspired me to study further, and then many years later, of course, I took up studying Buddhism. But it always sort of resonated with me, the idea of karma.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, isn't it? I never thought of it like that, where,
Hmm.
yeah, like cause and effect applies to anything, and why not the
Yeah,
human mind? Yeah,
yeah.
and that's totally it, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think so. And the whole idea of, taking responsibility for your actions. Don't go and blame someone else. And I see a tendency to do that. And it's a kind of rich country problem also, that we are so quick to just find someone else to blame, uh, rather than to see or accept, not that it's our fault necessarily, but that there are causes and conditions, many circumstances, and that's an important aspect of karma. It's not like these deterministic things. We say that karma ripens. There are many causes and conditions that come to play in the context of karma, and that's also why we can, through our practice, we can also manipulate karma.
yeah. Or like it's an investment,
We can also counteract the tendency. Of course we can. That
and
makes totally sense to me.
yeah, I think it also works in terms of it's similar to investing, where like you just put like a little bit of money in, a little bit of money
Mm.
in, and you think you're not making any difference. But then over
Mm.
time, the percentage return just compounds, compounds, compounds until you end up with like millions of dollars that is earning like hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars a year. And you started from just a very small point. And I think
Mm.
it's kind of similar in terms of like Buddhist practice where and I think the Tibetan masters and other masters have confirmed this, where like practice gets magnified the more you do it. Like the returns do compound,
Yeah,
and I
yeah, we
think that's
call
definitely
it
been true for me as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
we call it accumulation, and
Mm.
it's like you start and feed this flame, or this way of being, and it increases. You also receive the positive results. You're inspired to do it more. You kind of there's also a there's also an immediate reward from behaving in a positive or a wholesome way that makes you want to do it more. So it's not that slow when we're talking about 3 eons of of good actions. It means 3 eons worth. That's what my teacher says. So
Uh,
it doesn't have to be a measure of time. And
well, that's
yeah,
good to know because I don't know if
yeah,
I want to
that's
hang out in samsara
yeah.
for like 3 eons.
I don't understand how samsara can last that long with the current situation. I don't know.
Yeah, like well,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be endless and beginningless, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it just goes in these waves. Now we're
Mm.
in according to all the Eastern systems, or both Buddhism and Hinduism, we're on the way down now. We're in degenerate times. That's why we have Tantra. We're not like people were 1,000 years ago. They were more easy for them to calm the mind and sit down and meditate. We have much more distractions and
Mm. Well,
emotions and
luckily that's not a core doctrine because I don't like that. Like it bums me out, and like luckily I don't have to believe it to be. I think that's just a kind of side thing, the whole
hmm
Kali Yuga thing. Maybe it's true. I don't know. Yeah, although I'm pretty sure I heard Robert Thurman say that doesn't count because we have the teachings of the Buddha still alive in the world, and it can't be Kali Yuga while the teachings of the Buddha exist.
No, it's not
But
at the worst. It's not at the worst point, and but
yeah,
it's a prediction in Buddhism that the
uh,
teachings will eventually disappear. But that just means there will be a new Buddha. Then Maitreya will
Manjushri. No, not Manjushri.
Maitreya will
Maitreya.
come.
Yeah,
He will come.
Maitreya will come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually my current teacher's stated goal is to be reborn and gain enlightenment under the guidance of Maitreya. That's what
Oh,
he's
that's
very clear.
wonderful.
Like that's what I'm practicing for. So may
Yeah.
he achieve it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Buddhist of love.
yeah.
Wonderful. Mm.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a nice place to leave it. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining us in this awesome discussion about karma. Hopefully, we've made some good karma, and hopefully, the people listening to it can go out and make some good karma immediately after this. This is your homework. Um, but yeah, like speaking of other opportunities to learn, like I know you've been developing like a kind of more sort of philosophical based sort of yoga teacher training. Is that what you're doing at the moment, Ellen?
Yeah, I've been doing teacher trainings over the last 5 years. And I decided, I mean, for me, one of the great joys of doing teacher training is that I'm able to teach philosophy. And I'm a kind of philosophy nerd. I find it's like mind travel, to try to put on a different worldview and see the world with different eyes, see it in a different way. And what we have to do first is just to confront our assumptions of what we believe the world to be, what we believe ourselves to be. So my aim is really to go a little bit deep and to first be aware of what do we think of the world? What is our background? Well, we have this materialistic worldview, and it could be completely different. We could also take on the view of seeing ourselves as relational beings, interconnected, and not as um, singular individuals separate from everyone else. So, so we do a bit of philosophical trainings. Really try to understand what the view is of different systems, and try to step into a different pair of shoes and see the world in that way. And then, of course, we also do meditation, compassion meditation, trying to like open this individual body to see to live or embody our connection to the past, and also to the future and to the present time, to all our relations that completely feed us in through our nervous system. So it's very much trying to, you could say, embody philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful idea. So,
Mm.
yeah, where can people find out more?
They can go to it will come on my website. It's under construction. It's still up there, ashtanganepal.com. I
Okay, yeah,
frequently
we'll put it in the
post
show
things.
notes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
frequently post things on Instagram as well. That's also Ashtanga Nepal.
okay. Well, hey,
Yeah.
Alan, so thanks so much for joining us.
Okay.